Hello everyone, you're welcome to my channel. You're welcome to Decenstitch. If you're a new subscriber or returning subscriber, you're welcome. Please kindly like, share, comment, subscribe. Please subscribe and click the notification bell. Thank you. My required measurements are waist divided by 4 plus that allowance 1 inch plus sewing allowance 0.5 inch plus side seam allowance 1 inch. Hip length minus band height 1.5 inches plus sewing allowance 0.5 inch. Seat or crotch depth minus band height 1.5 inches plus sewing allowance 0.5 inches plus ease 1 inch. Knee length minus band height 1.5 inches plus sewing allowance 0.5 inch. Trouser length minus band height 1.5 inches plus sewing allowance 0.5 inches plus hem allowance 1.5 inches. Because the back piece is always bigger than the front piece from the hip area to the hem, we will have separate measurements for the front and back piece. For the remaining measurements below, I am going to minus 0.5 inch from the derived measurements to get what we will be using for the front and add 0.5 inch to the derived measurements to get what we will be using for the back. The hip is divided by 4 plus sewing allowance 0.5 inch plus side seam allowance 1 inch. You get your answer. Then for the front piece, you minus 0.5. Write down your answer. For the back piece, add 0.5. Write down your answer. The round tie is divided by 2 plus sewing allowance 0.5 inch plus side seam allowance 1 inch. You write down your answer, then write down the answer for front and back. The round knee is divided by 2 plus sewing allowance 0.5 inch plus side seam allowance 1 inch. You get your answer and do the same, right for front and back. Lastly, the round ankle is divided by 2 plus sewing allowance 0.5 plus side seam allowance 1 inch. You write down your answer. Below is an example of how to get your front and your back measurements. We're going to be using the round tie. So the round tie measurement is 23 inches. We're going to divide it by 2 plus sewing allowance is 0.5 inch plus side seam allowance 1 inch, and that will give us 13 inches. 13 inches is our derived measurement after calculation. So to get the front, I'm going to minus 0.5 inch from 13 inches. That will give me 12.5. While to get the back, I'm going to add 0.5 inch to 13 inches. So my back will be 13.5 inches. For the front piece of my trouser, I'm going to start by drawing a line at the top here. From this line, I'm going to measure my hip length. That is 6. From the line again, I'm going to measure my crotch depth or seat. That is 10.5. Next, I'm going to measure my knee length from the line also. That is 20 inches. Lastly, I'm going to measure my trouser length. That is 37.5 inches. I'm going to connect my dots using a ruler. My hip measurement for the front is 10.5. I'm going to measure it on the hip length line and on the crotch depth line. This is my waist. This is my hip length. This is my crotch depth or sit. This is the knee length. This is the trouser length. On the line of the waist, hip length and crotch depth, I'll measure my hip for the front. That is 10.5. Then I'll draw a line. From this line, I'm going to measure my waist, which is 9.625 inches. I will use my French curve to connect it to my hip. Now I'm going to draw my dart. From here, I'm going to measure 3.5 inches. On the hip line, I'll measure 3.5 also. The dart for my front is going to stop 2 inches before my hip line. So I'm going to measure 2 inches here. Then draw the dart. The size of my dart is 1 inch. I'm going to put 0.5 on this side, 0.5 on this side, and draw my dart. The next thing I'm going to do on the crotch depth line, I'm going to measure 1.5 and draw a straight line there. I'm going to use my French curve from the 1.5 into the hip length area. Now I'm going to get the midpoint of my hip measurements that I made here. The hip is 10.5, so the midpoint is 5.25. I'll mark that on the crotch depth line. I'll mark the same 5.25 inches on the knee length line and also on the trouser length line. Now I will use my ruler to draw dotted lines. The next thing is to draw the flap. I'm going to be using 1 inch. You can use 1.5 if you want. The flap stops 1 inch before the hip length, so I'll measure the 1 inch here. It can also get to the hip length if you desire. On the knee length line, I'm going to get my round knee, which is 8 inches. That 8 inches, I'm going to divide it into 2. That is the purpose of this midline. I'm going to divide it into 2. I'll put 4 inches on this side and 4 inches on this other side. The round ankle is 6.75. I will divide that into 2. I'll measure 3.325 on this side and on the other side. I can approximate it to 3.4 inches. I'm going to use my ruler to connect the crotch depth line to the knee length and also to the trouser length. I'll do the same on the other side. I'm going to use French curve for this part. I want a very light curve here, almost like a straight line but a slight curve. The next thing is to draw the pockets. From the waist, I'm going to measure inwards 3.5 from the line of the waist. From the 3.5, I'm going to place my tape rule towards the side of the trouser and I'm going to get 7.5. I'm going to mark where the 7.5 touches the side of my trouser. I'll draw that with my ruler. From here again, I'll measure 4 inches. From the 3.5, I'll measure 4 inches for the inside of my pocket. This is the opening of my pocket where you slide your hand into, while the 4 inches I measured now is going to be inside of the pocket where you keep your money or other things. I'm going to use my French curve to draw the 4 inches into my crotch depth line. There I have my pocket. This is my front trouser. This is my straight green. I'm going to cut 2 pieces of this. Now I'm going to cut it out. This is the front piece. For the back piece, I'm going to leave 2 inches up here. This is going to be my starting line. This is going to be the starting point. From this line, I'm going to measure down to get my hip length, which is 6 inches. From the line again, I'm going to measure my crotch depth of 6, which is 10.5 inches. Then I'm going to measure my knee length, 20 inches. Finally, I'm going to measure my trouser length. That is 37.5. I'm going to connect my dots using my ruler. This is the trouser length. This is the knee length. This is my crotch depth line. This is the hip length line. And this is the waist line. I'll do the same down here. I'll use a ruler to connect it. I will be connecting it back to the front piece. I'll connect it to the tip of this curve. I won't be using a ruler. I'll use a French curve, using a very light curve. You curve it well into the line, let it blend well. I'm going to get the position of my dart using the thumb tack. I will mark all the 3 points. Now I'm going to remove the paper. I'm going to draw my dart. I would like to make the dart at the back ½ inch longer than that of the front. That means it will stop 1.5 inches before my hip line. I will also extend the dart into this line because this is going to be my new waist. I'll draw it straight because I don't want to take more than 1 inch. From here I'll draw it straight up so as to maintain the 1 inch. The next thing I'm going to do, remember that the back is bigger than the front, so I'm going to add 1 inch here, add 1 inch on the hip line, at this point I'm going to add another 1 inch. On the knee length line, I'm going to add 1 inch. On the trouser length line, 1 inch also. My hip for my back is 11.5, so I should have 11.5 here. My waist is still the same, 9.625. The waist is still the same. I'm going to connect all my dots. Using the same shape, I'll be using a ruler for this because it's a straight line. I'll connect it at the top. Then I'll be using the French curve, the curved parts. I'm going to connect from here into here first. Then I'm going to use the ruler part to connect here. I'm going to use a light curve here. Then use my ruler to complete it. I'm going to place my ruler here to balance this line, to make the line okay. The line was bulging out a bit. Now I'm going to cut it out. Remember, I'm going to cut the new line, the extended line. This is the back piece. I'm going to cut 2 pieces of this. This is the straight grain. The straight grain shows how you're going to place it on the fabric. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please kindly like, share, comment, subscribe if you're new here, and click the notification bell. Thank you.